Hey guys, Julian here from SynthwavePro.com. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. So in this tutorial, we take a close look at automation as it relates to call and response. Let's get started. All right guys, let's get right into it. So here I have two examples of the same passage. However, one version, I guess no automation, has basically no automation, and of course this version has some automation. So let's pay attention to what's going on with our bass and our lead. Those are the instruments we're going to focus on, and we're going to focus on automating these guys. All right, so let me go ahead and play this out and we can discuss a little more about what exactly is going on. Pretty plain, not too much going on in terms of automation. Let's pay attention to this second version. All right, so to me personally, this version sounds a little more exciting, a little more dynamic, and some of these automation tweaks don't necessarily have to be that overt. So what do we have going on here? Well, first of all, we're using the Polysix, and I've basically tethered a few controls to it, meaning the cutoff, the resonance, the attack, decay, sustain, release of the filter. And as we make our way through this passage, we're sort of having a conversation between the bass and the lead line here, a bit of call and response. You know, I talk a lot about this. So let's go ahead and isolate the bass channel and the lead line and see what's going on for this second version here, the automation version. So our filter opens up right here. And of course, now we are tweaking the decay as well as the sustain of that filter. Now you don't hear this too much only because we're using the arpeggiator, but if I were to disengage the arpeggiator, you'll see that these automation parameters here, specifically the decay and the sustain, become much more audible. So let's go ahead and listen to this while the arpeggiator is disabled. Now, all of these changes become a lot more subtle once the arpeggiator is engaged and we set the gate to 1%. This is a value I like to choose. And of course, the rate is set to 16th notes, right? And so now, once we have these parameters, these modulation changes throughout our passage, they become a lot more subtle. And less aggressive, right? And one of the cool things I like with using, first of all, the Polysix is, of course, we are using the fat line bass, and many of you have recognized it, but sometimes you just don't want it to sound like the fat line bass, right? It's been so overused, it's sort of the go-to, but I find that when you're using an arpeggiator and, you know, you use it with different controls like the cutoff, resonance, you keep tweaking it, and of course, once you set the gate to 1, it doesn't sound so recognizable. And you can also layer this with other instrument, but you know, that's neither here or there. So let's go ahead and see the differences between the no automation version and the automated version. Pretty static, right? There's not a conversation between the bass and the lead line. Sometimes a little automation goes a long way. It's especially useful when you're rocking 2-chord jams, or if you have a repetitive sequence, or if you need to highlight a specific instrument. All right, so let's examine what exactly is going on between the bass and the lead line. Here you can see that as the lead line does its thing, the bass remains pretty static, but once there's an opening, once our notes or lead line isn't really playing, this presents a good opportunity to have a little bit of automation. So this is where we get this opening of the filter. It makes the sound a little brighter because we have it set to a low pass filter. And of course, once the lead line comes back, the lead line is the star, the bass quickly ramps down, becomes a little darker, all right? And throughout this whole sequence, we're just gonna add a little bit of tweaking here for the decay and the sustain here. And again, because we have it running through the arpeggiator, we have the gate set to 1%, it's not really that big of a deal. But those individual notes, those ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, the thing you want to avoid sometimes is the machine gun sound, right? In certain styles, it just works, but I think for this one we needed something a little more organic, if you want to say, a little more analog, if you will. Just to give that bass a little more character, right? Okay, so I've chosen to automate the cutoff and the resonance, the attack, decay, sustain, release, but you can also automate this cool gate feature here with our arpeggiator. Now, I didn't use it for this sequence. I didn't want to, throw the whole kitchen sink at this little sequence, but, you can do something like this. Cool. All right, so another instrument I want to highlight some automation changes would be the lead line. Here you can see that for this lead line, I am sending a portion of that signal via the sends to our return channel, specifically return channel C and D. So for C, I have it set to a simple, very basic delay, a little bit of feedback at 21%. Of course, we are running it dry, and we have it set to dotted eighth notes, all right? And here for our fourth one, at this point, we have a little bit of this being sent to return number 4, and we have it set to a filter delay. We have it set to 16th notes and 8th notes here, okay? So the cool thing with this is that we are going to send a little bit of that signal specifically on the final note of that phrase, right? So we don't want to clutter the mix too much. We just want to make sure that our lead line is doing its thing, and on that final note, once we have this sort of space, this is a great opportunity to send it to a little bit of delay. So this is what this sounds like. I'm just gonna solo the lead and also enable return C and D. All right, so those delayed copies can resonate for an extended period of time while our bass is doing its thing. That's the resonance lane. All right, so you'll notice that there's not only a conversation happening between the bass and the lead instrument, we also have these transitional effects, and let me just go ahead and play, and you can see that as our lead line sort of tapers off, we can introduce other elements just to make it a little more exciting. So the bass does its thing. We have the resonance here. This is the resonance lane. Add in an effect. And these are simply reversed copies of these lead lines that we've made an audio copy and simply reversed it. All right, easy peasy stuff. That's it for this tutorial. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.